As I'm starting the recording, the I don't know, the intention is that most likely we'll make this public. So I hope that doesn't prevent anyone from sharing anything. But if you do feel like, please feel free, share and say this has to be excluded, then we can exclude that part also. Yeah. So that let the flow not stop. If anything is there, we'll get that confirmation at the end also. Thank you. So let's get started. Usual,
Yeah.
We'll start with our prayer. So I've called this, this is new for me. We'll see. We've called this session Fascia, one body, and liquid and solid. We'll see what that means as we go ahead with the session today. I request all to just sit comfortably. If you're on a chair, just let your feet be comfortably on the ground, flat, your back supported. Bring your attention to your breath. Notice the air going in and out. As we set the intention for this session, you can repeat after me. May we be Saath together.
May we be Saath together.
May we be Jigyasu, curious. May we be Virya, energetic. May our learning be Tejasvi, bright. Shanti, Sukoon, peace. Thank you everybody for joining. It's good to see you. Hi, Sanjeev, Sandeep, Dhyanada. Glad you were able to join, Dhyanada. With the tech issues, also good. Good to see you. Okay. So today, I think I'm just putting this disclaimer. This is a topic which I have just started understanding a little bit. So the purpose of today is to share again just some facts which I have been able to gather, show some videos which are there about the fascial system of our body, and then collectively sort of see what the implications of those are. I have seen some from my side, which you will see, but it's very raw. So we'll do that collectively, yeah, as we go through the session as well, and we'll do that at moments as we start sharing. Okay. So with that, let's start. There is a little bit of content to share so that we get those facts in for ourselves absorbed. So just starting with this was the last session who attended. We saw this, right? We saw the systems of the human biology or human body as it's defined. We basically organize them as a cell. Cells or types of cells come together to form a tissue. Tissues come together to form an organ, and that organ comes together to form a system. So just like, for example, our urinary system will have nephron cells, which are the cells in the kidney. They together will form a tissue and they'll form an organ. And organs like the kidneys, the two kidneys, bladder, urethra, all that put together forms the urinary system, for example. Right. So that's how it is usually seen. And this is sort of the landscape of all the systems, how currently mostly modern science talks about it. That's how it puts in the most textbooks, medical textbooks. I don't know. I think in school textbooks also this has started coming. At least it wasn't at when I was studying. But this is largely it. In some they will name it differently. Somewhere they may call the musculoskeletal as separate, a muscular system and skeletal system. Some places they merge the immune and integumentary system and all that. But broadly, this is the classification. Now, what they have found is there is something missing in this, right? And And now last 5, 7 years, 10 years, this has been talked more about, and they are saying, calling it the fascial system or the connective tissue. And it's getting recognition more and more with more research, more understanding that it's like a independent system, just like any of these, at par with this, if not more important, is how they are seeing it now. So this is a very recent development in sort of the timeline of science or biology. So it's in just in the last 7, 8, 10 years when the importance of this is coming up, and we'll see a video why also one of them scientists talking about why that is the case. But before that, just a quick intro saying what is this fascia, right? For many, it's a new term. So I'll start with this, something I think which people like, right? Maybe like, or maybe in this group who have done ahar, they might say they do not like it, but this is a pizza. How would you describe this pizza? Anybody can unmute and say what will it be like on the menu? How will it be listed? You think this pizza? Anybody just unmute and say what would it be called, or what are you seeing? Is it visible, right? The picture. Go ahead. There's no trick question in this. It's just what are you seeing? I also
Veg,
don't know.
veg
Sorry?
extravaganza.
Okay, veg extravaganza. Yes, Anjali.
It's basically it's a whatever base it is, whatever pizza base it is, with the toppings and maybe the kind of cheese that it is with the herbs and vegetables.
Yeah. So basically a lot of, but top focus is on the toppings. There's some base and cheese. Okay. And what would this be? How would you name it? Like what? Olives, broccoli, right? Some stuff like that. Usually.
Ah.
That's how it's on the menu, right? And now they have started, as you said, talking about the crust and all. But usually when it is pizza, we would just say, this, or it's olive and broccoli or tomato, etc. We focus on the toppings.
Yeah.
Right? We miss out the base on what all these toppings are. And in some ways, that's what fascia is. So till now, when human body was dissected, anatomically seen, we were looking at the toppings. You would see the arteries, the blood vessels, the veins, the nervous system, the muscles, the bones. But where is all this hanging? Right? We are 70% water. So one good question, a scientist, if we are 70% water, why is there no puddle of water? How is this water held? Why is it not all falling down? Or why aren't my feet filled with water? Because that's what gravity would do. Right? Where is this water lying? If we are 70% water, blood has only 5 liters, right? That's 5 kg. Average weight of an adult would be 60, 70 kg. So 70% water means will be 35, 40 kg of water. But where is that water? Why is it not lying at my feet? What is holding that water? So that's the base. That's the background. That's what is, and that's what the fascia is. So till now, when they would do anatomy, and if you ask a doctor who has done dissection or anatomy class, they would cut, they would see, they would throw some stuff out in the dustbin, and they'll start looking at, oh, this is the muscle, this is the bone, this is the artery, this is the vein, this is the nerve, all those toppings. But what they have thrown out is the fascia. And now they are realizing after so long, after all so many hundreds or probably 200 years of dissection, by there is a role. Nature has not made anything. There is not a single cell of waste in our body by default. It's very, very useful. There is 4 billion years of intelligence. I always keep saying that's built in. Our human intelligence, even collectively, is 200 years at max in science, in biology, maybe 400 years. We can't beat the 4 billion years. So everything that's there is useful, and they are beginning to see that. So that is what the fascia is, this base. But it's obviously much more complex than this pizza base, as we'll see today, and the role it plays. But that's essentially what the fascia is and why it was ignored till now. Just like we've now started talking of cheese burst pizza, thin crust pizza, the base is getting some importance because we have ran out of toppings to sell or to market. So yeah, so that's what fascia is in a very quick sense. But let's see what the technical definition is. This is from the NIH website. It's a book on anatomy where they describe fascia, and this is how they describe it. This is, researchers do not yet agree on one comprehensive fascia definition because it's still so new. It's not yet agreed. Despite this scientific uncertainty, there is an agreement with medical texts. So there is some agreement that the fascia covers every structure of the body. every structure of the body, creating a structural continuity that gives form and function to every tissue and organ. To every tissue and organ means other systems also. The fascial tissue has a ubiquitous distribution in the body system. Again, ubiquitous, it's everywhere, it's continuous, every structure. It is able to wrap, interpenetrate, support, and form the bloodstream, the bone tissue, the meningeal tissue, which is in our brain, organs, and skeletal muscles. It is able to wrap, interpenetrate, support, and form all of these, basically everything. The fascia creates different interdependent layers with several depths from the skin to the periosteum, forming a three-dimensional mechano-metabolic structure. Fairly complex technical definition. I have highlighted these and that's what we'll focus on. So we'll focus on these three things to understand today: structural continuity and ubiquitous distribution. What does that mean? What is the implication of that? Second, different interdependent layers. What is the implication again of that? Very unique. And a three-dimensional mechano-metabolic structure. So we'll go part by part. We'll look at each of these three aspects, go in a little bit of detail to understand what they mean when they say this technical definition practically, and what does it mean for us as we look at it, both as individuals and also as coaches, as we support others as well. Fair enough. This three is okay. Does any other thing gets picked up? I thought these were the three key highlights, at least, of this definition. And I've given a link. I'll share the PPT, which is on this down the source. So this is a web page. I would encourage. It's not very long. Whoever is interested, please go and read. It's not very technical, very detailed, like words or jargon, fairly readable. Yeah. So all okay with these three things to focus on? Yes, we'll go one by one.
One question.
Yes, Andy.
So, can you elaborate a little bit about what you mean by this? The science has not, this has not been studied, or the science did not recognize this, because my impression all along has been that we've known of the existence of this, right? So massage, for example, we know works on the fascial system and so on. So can you just describe a little more about?
So now we know when we say, so massage, let's say the traditional massages, they worked on this system. But from a Western science perspective, massage was very focused on muscular work, not on the fascia. Very recently now, like 10, 15 years, they have started talking, okay, it is probably the fascia. And now they're studying the impact of it. So now they're recognizing it as a therapy. There are clinical trials happening. NIH actually now has a division called, in US, called the complementary medicine. There is a director there who is looking at these much more seriously. But these are very much more recent phenomena. Massage has been existing. I think the traditional massage has worked on this only. Does that answer?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? So this was, if you ask a doctor, like I'm saying doctor now, a traditional, I call allopathy as traditional medicine now. I think that's the way we have to see. Innovative medicine is all this. Allopathy is the traditional old form of medicine. So a traditional doctor will say fascia is nothing. They will actually, that's how they do it. In anatomical dissections, they'll throw it in the dustbin. They'll look at the other structures. But now they're seeing, okay, there is something there. And some doctors have really taken a much deeper interest in it, now being last 10, 15 years. Very good work done again by some doctors only, because they were the ones who could do it, and they chose to do that. Any other thoughts, comments before we get into it? Okay, shall we go ahead? We'll look at the first part, which is the structural continuity and ubiquitous distribution. What does that mean? And I think the best way, I couldn't find a better way than showing you this video. So I'll show you that. It's a longish video, but trust me, please see it for the full 11 minutes. Pay attention. It's very well done. I couldn't skip out even a minute. I said, this is good. Everything is relevant here. So let's get to that. Oh, sorry. I don't know that. Yes, you can see the video.
Hi, everybody.
Yeah, audio.
Thank you
Good.
so much for joining us today. At Sterling Structural Therapy, we use an innovative, completely non-invasive approach to the treatment of orthopedic and chronic pain conditions. And one of the things that makes this method unique, one of the factors, is that it is a fascia-based approach. Another word for fascia is, another term for it is connective tissue. Today, I'm going to give you a brief synopsis of what is this fascia thing that you might have already been hearing about a little bit in the media. I'm also going to give you a very clear, concrete, visual demonstration of how fascia is affecting every single one of you right now just sitting here, and also when you're on the golf course, at the gym, or even if you're just trying to put your bag in the overhead bin on the airplane. So whenever we introduce a new concept, and fascia is a brand new concept in medicine and rehabilitation, it's only about 7 to 10 years old, the research on this. It's really important that we actually connect it to what we already know to get a better understanding. So let's start with two anatomical systems we're all really, really familiar with. So the first system, we all have seen this at one point or another, the skeletal system, and if you need a tune-up to your skeletal system, you book an appointment with Dr. Rob. And then the next anatomical system, again, I doubt there's anyone in the room that doesn't know it or won't recognize it. The muscular system. And for tune-ups on this system, you go see our friends at the exercise coach and go get some testing done in cerulean to figure out what exactly to do with this. Now, this is sometimes, those two systems will sometimes be called the musculoskeletal system. I'm about to tell you about a third system, a massive one, that actually connects those two to each other. And this system has been summarily ignored in rehabilitation and medicine, actually for hundreds of years. So how it's been ignored is that the way we study anatomy to understand how to better help people recover is through cadaver dissection. And for hundreds of years, when we are doing cadaver dissection, we have simply been cutting away this fascia, connective tissue, and literally throwing it in the garbage bin. So when I went to college, which was not hundreds of years ago, but a little while ago, same thing. We were just taught to cut it away so you can look and study the muscle and look and study the bone, look at the attachment and origin. We were actually taught that fascia is simply packing material. And we're not an Amazon packet, okay? We are brilliantly designed. Everything in there is for a reason. What we're finding out, like those two blue diagrams that you see behind me, not only does fascia matter, but it has very specific lines of pull. And if you could look at those two diagrams, can you imagine if someone has a fascia restriction through this that will alter their muscles and their bone positions, that their posture might change, and then their range of motion, and maybe they'll develop some issues based on this. Now, the image in the center is very useful because I want you to think as your fascia as your birthday suit. It's the organ of form. And those two images on the side is actually fascia when magnified times 25. It looks like cobwebs. So it's literally the cobwebs that make you who you are. Now, fascia is an interesting thing. Another reason that it's been summarily ignored, even in modern day medicine, is guess what? Fascia does not show up in MRIs, X-rays, or CT scans. So imagine someone's having an issue and they're getting some imaging done, and I'm not going to argue that their images are showing possible stenosis, bone on bone, etc. That is true, but there's another big piece of the puzzle that's simply being ignored. Can you imagine getting a diagnosis and treatment based on seriously incomplete data? It does not sound like a good equation, does it? Now, some other fun fascia facts. Fascia has 6 to 10 times more sensory nerves than a muscle. If you've ever had really, really bad muscle soreness after a serious workout, I mean, the next 2 days you're kind of walking funny. This is some pretty high level pain, right? But the good news is, A, that's actually healthy, it's adaptation, and it goes away. Can you imagine that pain magnified times 6 or 10 times? And how about it doesn't go away, hence chronic? And if anyone in this room has ever had their back go out on them, their knee buckle, their neck go out on them, you know exactly what kind of pain I'm talking about. And some people that we work with, they're walking in, how long has this been going on? 3 months, 6 months, a year, 3 years, and very often, and sadly so, 2 decades, 3 decades, oh, let me think about it. So the good news is that fascia can give people like that a way out. And right now, I'm going to give you that visual demonstration that I promised in order to make sense of all of this so you can understand how it's affecting you right now. So allow me to introduce my colleague, Cody Williams, who is a structural therapist at Sterling Structural Therapy. But today, good, please giggle and whistle for the love of, yes, good. Today, Cody is Monsieur Fascia, okay? And I'm going to torture him and give him all sorts of fascial restrictions. Now, before I do, Cody's fascia suit is healthy. And notice the cobwebs, right? They're doing well, right? So he can lift his arms, he can move, he can go hike, he can go play tennis, he can do it, he can tie his shoes, no pain, okay? No problem. I'm about to change that. So I'm gonna give Cody a myofascial restriction at his right rib cage and armpit. And if you can already see, he's already having to adapt a little bit against this. Good. So now, Cody, go ahead and try to lift both arms up for me. And we're gonna just, woo, good. Okay, so can you see that his range of motion is restricted right now? Really try to lift them up higher, Cody. Okay, now, drop them back down, because ow, that's not fun. Now, this makes sense, right? You can imagine how this is gonna create this restriction. Did you notice what happened at his left shoulder over here? Yeah? So go ahead, lift both of them again. A fascial restriction here is causing some serious range of motion issues over here. Now let's drop that down, and I'm gonna give him a fascial release and fix him up, and now, woohoo, yeah. Did you notice him kind of move his neck? That is not comfortable in the neck either. Just gonna give you a brief example. A client that came to see us, fully torn rotator cuff. The surgeon said, sorry, can't repair it, fully torn. She now has that full range of motion and no more pain because we actually helped her modify her fascial restriction, and she changed certain habits to not recreate it. So it's actually incredibly adaptive, okay? Your body is incredibly adaptive. It does not rely on just one small little muscle, and there are even 4 little rotator cuff muscles if you create balance elsewhere. I'm gonna give another example, torture Cody some more. And this is a bit more of a complex example. So I'm gonna give Cody a pretty severe myofascial restriction at his right hip. Good. Now, first of all, can you see how Cody has started to kind of develop some interesting posture? Good. Cody, try to lift your arms for me, please. See where the restriction is? It's even worse than before, by the way. Did you notice that? And then drop the arms back down. Now, Cody's gonna attempt to walk with this myofascial restriction. So we're gonna go for a little walk, and he's gonna walk a little bit interestingly, right? Okay? And we're gonna back it up so we don't fall on Dr. Rob. Good? Okay? So what I want you to see is that, first of all, you already saw how this affects his shoulders. Think about his neck. Can you imagine what might be happening at this hip over here? How that might be compensating and actually wearing on things, maybe even wearing cartilage from the position? Of course, this hip is probably not very happy, and this knee could have serious problems. With this pattern, Cody can have plantar fasciitis on his left foot because it has to deal with severe loads and modified impact with every step to try to stabilize him. This is the interesting with fascia. Where you think it is, it ain't, okay? And the other point is, can you imagine his lumbar spine? I dare anyone to go for a walk with this. Half an hour. Tell me how your back feels. Okay, so I'll set Cody free, proverbially and literally. Thank you, Cody. Everybody please give him a hand for being tortured. Good. And now I'm gonna give you that real life example. It's actually my privilege to share the story of one of our amazing, courageous clients and their journey to recovery. Samantha's story. By the time Samantha came to see us, these are the surgical procedures that she had gone through. It started out with double scopes on each knee. Didn't work. They did a release of the ligaments on the outside of her knees. Couple of years later, she ended up with low back pain. They did lumbar spine surgery, a discectomy. Couple years later, Samantha ended up with severe debilitating neck pain. I'm seeing some faces that, yeah, it's not pretty, yeah? Okay, and what they did this time is they put this hardware in her neck. Okay, so they did just trying to help her, yes? They did an anterior cervical fusion. They fused her neck. So by the time she was sitting in front of us, she was literally immobile. She was pale gray, very shallow breathing, could not do any of the things she loved to do, and relied on opiates daily, simply to cope. And I like this example because if anyone should be like an end game, it's Samantha, right? Like, this is it. Like, okay, let's change the meds maybe, find different ways of coping with this. Well, I'm here to tell you that's not what happened. That's Samantha today. That is a year and 8 months after starting treatment. Through a heck of a lot of diligent work, investment in herself, time, money, energy, and she still does daily homework exercises, absolutely necessary to sustain and actually to increase the trajectory of her mobility, yes? She's back today to national level competitive horse reining. The point of my story is, if anyone tells you it's too late, and you even have the MRIs and X-rays that say so, don't believe it, okay? Thank you.
Did it give you a sense of how this ubiquitousness, the connectivity across, that's the theme we are looking at least to start with, the continuity from the distribution. Maybe we'll keep it open. If any, what did you take away as you saw this? What's your highlight? Yeah, anybody? How was the demonstration of the person? So to me, that was one of the big things in this, right? How just sometimes where you think there is, you may develop. So what she described was plantar fasciitis, right? That's the heel pain or the pain in the arc that we get. We'll focus on that, but the issue is on the right hip, not even on the same leg. It will be somewhere else entirely. That the root cause sort of is in our anatomy. Sorry, yes, Bhuvna, you're saying something.
Sandeep, one observation that not just massage, probably when we are doing yoga or very slow movements, it is also probably working on fascia, right?
Yes, it will.
It's helping, yeah.
Yeah, it is. Not just massage, yeah.
Yeah, and hi, Malaysia. And I wanted to mention that maybe physiotherapists also, like, do they actively use knowledge of this? maybe they are leveraging this, right? No?
No, not every physiotherapist. I don't think it's yet part of their curriculum. Some will. So there are people who have upgraded their knowledge out of choice. So it's not yet part, I think. In medical science, it takes 20 to 30 years and more for curriculums to be updated. So it's a lot on the doctor, the practitioner themselves.
Yeah.
Yes, Bhuvna, then Anjali. Bhuvna, you were saying something, I think.
Yeah, so there are many physiotherapists who undergo this training of craniosexual therapy. And then the appreciation for the fascia comes in. And instead of pushing and pulling, there's a lot more understanding of how to soften things. You don't have to really use force, but your body is capable of softening from within. It's after all fluids, right? So there are ways to hydrate yourself from within. So
yes, it happens after. Yes, Anjali.
Yes, so I actually used to have a lot of pain around the upper thigh and the groin area and all. So my physiotherapist, talking about even 10 years ago, she used to work, and it's like really painful. Working on this fascia is really painful. So while you're working for your other arms and all, you're doing exercises and all that. But when this thing is concerned, she used to use her elbow pressure, and it used to be really painful. And she said, we are working on those at that level. So, but there are not many who do this. And she was like really excellent. And I've also seen that then there was a pain somewhere else, but it was affecting some other part of the body. So I've really what this lady was talking about. I really experienced that also.
Yeah.
So you feel that the pain is I was feeling it that it's on my calves and all that, but it was coming from my hip, so that's side of the. So it was so she this physio used to always work on the hip, and my calf used to get okay.
Yeah.
So
very good.
I really experienced. She used to use the word, but I never really asked about it. I mean, I just thought it's a known thing. I mean, physios all know it, but everyone doesn't work like that. So
like we saw, I think Malesh
it's
made that part also, that they are typically taught the musculoskeletal system. They know about the muscles, they know about the skeleton, and they know how those muscles, and that's what they work with. They understand, of course, a little bit of physiology as well, also because that's part of their curriculum. But this is a different system now, right? The fascial system, which is where all these lie, like we saw, like even she described.
yeah.
Yes.
Yes, Bhuvna.
Yeah. So when like what she was saying, right? Like they kind of, when they are dissecting the body, the fluids are all drained and it is dry. So it feels like one dead peel of material on the muscle. So they just tear it and throw. But the live one are very fluid. Even the bones are actually very fluid, But it's hard for us to comprehend that, because when you see the bones in the dead body, it is white. They are right, but they are rigid and things like that. But in a live one, it's not like that.
Yes, I'll try and show an image too. I got an image around this and some live tissue image as well to make this. Yeah. It's a very important thing that you're saying, that our experience otherwise is very different. Good. Okay.
One more thing that caught my attention was they mentioned there are 6 times more nerves.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So there can be 2 implications.
6
One
times
is
more sensory nerves.
Sensory nerves.
Yeah.
So
Not
would that mean that we just generally feel whatever is happening much easier or more sensitive?
Yeah. That's called proprioception or interoception. So our pressure sensors, and we'll see that a little bit in the image also that will come now. We'll get into the micro of it, how they are organized really. Yeah. Yes. Good. Okay. Yeah. So let's move ahead because there is more. We'll keep getting out of time. So to me, this is a picture that summarizes this very well, this structural continuity and ubiquitousness, right? What's the implication? So this is what the birthday suit is. So somebody chose to actually do a dissection, and there are people who do a dissection now like this. So usually dissection is like this. So I cut and start seeing, and then you throw out the fascia. But somebody said, I'll do the dissection like this, right? Peel it off. And once they start doing it, you will see this kind of an image. It's like one suit. It's entirely connected, the whole thing. And inside also, for that matter, they have to cut it. But this goes even inside our organs. This is very still superficial, but the fascia actually goes inside all the muscles. It goes inside our organs. That's where every cell of our body is hanging, really, literally, because water is everywhere. So the few implications I thought which came out was one, that any block in one part is likely to affect the other part. So we can't isolate the parts of our body. Just like we saw something is stuck somewhere, we may experience it in one place initially also, but it will affect the other part. And wherever we may experience it, the root cause may actually be somewhere else. So this association that we have, where the pain is, that's where the problem is. That starts basically breaking down this theory, right? Because it's no longer, if the pain is in my heel, that means there is a problem. That's what a surgeon does. He'll go and do something there. But your problem is actually in your hip, like she showed, that there is a problem there. And like Anjali's example, it's not the calf which was the problem. The problem was in the hip. So then we have to start looking at that way, that if it's a problem in the neck, it's actually in the shoulder. It's not the neck. It may be in the shoulder. It may be in the thigh, because this whole thing is connected. So for ourselves, for patients we support, this has to become very clear now to everyone after this, that it is all connected. So the location of the discomfort, the location of the pain, where I am sensing it or where another person is sensing it, does not mean that's where the problem is. It's a very delocalized problem. It's a one problem. It's a body problem. It's not a part problem. And to me, this summarizes it, which we say that there is hence constant communication across the body. The body is communicating, every cell is communicating with every cell almost in some ways, in a very mechanical, physical way. And in physics, we'll call it almost like there is percussion, there is a response that is actually traveling, like vibrations which will travel across this network. And we'll see a little bit of this in a little bit more micro sense as well. But to me, this was the biggest takeaway, and which I've obviously seen now with a lot of patients I work with when I do work with them, that this happens. And like Anjali shared, Bhuvana shared their experience. I'm sure, I don't know if others have had that live experience themselves, but watch this now, at least for yourself, where that pain is versus where the problem is. I think that has to start separating in our mind very clearly, that it is not there necessarily. It may be there, but it is not there necessarily. Definitely not there necessarily. Yeah, and the second which came up for me, which I didn't write, but from those story, was the amount of recovery, the resilience that's there in us, right? Even if the cervical was fused, I don't know whether they finally removed it, she could still ride a horse. There is so much redundancy built in our system that if something doesn't work, there are other ways. The shoulder cuff is not working, but there is another way to get that same functionality. If we know how this works, if we have the right guidance, and of course, listen to our body. And that's where listening becomes very important. There are 6 to 10 times more nerves which are giving us that information, right? That's why it's important to see it's sensory nerves in our fascia. So they're telling us what's happening if we are ready to listen to. They're telling us continuously what's happening. Yeah, that's my takeaway. Anything else anybody wants to add on just this part, on this structural continuity? And this to me is like the big, at least takeaway. Problem can be anywhere. The pain kahin par bhi ho, problem can be anywhere. Yes, Bhuvana.
Can I share an experience? So someone came to me.
Bhuvana, we can't hear you. Anybody others can hear? No.
No.
Video is also gone.
With tennis elbow. Okay. And maybe now, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
No, she's frozen also.
Yeah. So she came with tennis elbow, and then, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So finally, I got, like, when I was working, then I just asked her, have you had any dental procedure? And then I worked on the pterygoid, like we have these place in the mouth, like that kind of unlocked the tennis elbow. It was so interesting, It was fascinating to see something somewhere so disconnected, getting cleared. Yeah.
Wow.
So this interconnection, how our jaws are connected to the neck, and then our neck is connected to our elbows, things like that. Yeah. So that was my experience.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah. Good. So I think this interconnectedness is good. I hope it's getting clear, established what that means around the problem versus the root cause being very different. So let's look at a little bit now microscopically on the different interdependent layers, that point around fascia. So this is again a typical image of the skin, right? This is like that pizza topping image because it's showing the toppings only. So we see the hair, we see the three layers, epidermis, dermis, subcutaneous. Anyone who's seeing any biology would see this. Then see there are the neurons here, the sensory neurons, which are coming up. These are the nerve endings. This is the vessels, the artery, the red one, vein is the blue one, fat cells, oil gland, basal layer. You're seeing everything is there, right? So what is missing? Can anybody see what is not labeled on this? Everything seems to be labeled, right? Very nicely. So where did they miss the fascia? Yes, anybody?
That white material.
Yes, the white material, the pizza base, basically, right? Where everything is, where everything is lying actually. So now the modern version is this. So this is what people who are beginning to understand are seeing this. There is the epidermis, dermis, and then this is now the layers. So you start seeing these layers. So like deep retinacula, deep fascial membrane. So these are the layers. And you're seeing now these are same arteries. There are the veins also here. This is the muscle, the last layer down. Hyaluronic acid is one of the key elements of the fascial aspect. There is fat also here. So now you're seeing how this web, the cobweb that they're talking about, right? Everywhere. This, obviously, this is a random web, but it exists sort of in this layer. That's what they mean by interdependent layer, that these layers are connected, but there is stuff in the middle which is useful. It's all embraced. So these are all arteries, veins, nerves. They are going through this. And they are packed like together in one coherent unit. So one of the common ones is the carotid sheath, which is here, which has the carotid artery, the vein, jugular, and the vagus nerve, which is on both sides of our neck. They are in one sheath together, that sheath of fascia, which is that they are close. And then there are muscles around it and the skin. So I hope that's clear. This top layer is a skin, and just underneath it, very quickly, the fascia starts coming, at least at the skin level. This is what I think they have understood the best. The interior is still, I didn't find anything very concrete yet on it. There is definitely research happening there as well. But I hope this idea is getting clear, how everything is so enmeshed and the role fascia is playing. So if the fascia, imagine now the web is changing. So your artery vein has to change their position, or they have to readjust according to that web. The nerve has to readjust if there is, right? And this fascia, like Bhuvna was saying, is very fluid-like. And there's very interesting property here, which will come in the third part, about this whole material that's here, this gel-like material that's there here in each of these fascial layers. This is another view of the same or similar thing. So this is the muscle again, this hyaluronic acid. So it's like an acid which is really going between these layers. So the layers are also like sliding on top of each other. That's what's really creating the movement in us. So you can imagine now, again, if this gel, this fluid like becomes hard, what will happen? Will we be able to move? No. No, right? So automatically that rigidity will come. So this lack of flexibility that we see, particularly in yoga, that's what Sanjeev was also saying, right? So if we talk of yoga, that flexibility, who can turn is not the muscle that research has found. So our muscle doesn't change length. It is the fluidity of this fascia that comes, that we are trying to build in there. And that creates that smooth movement and allows the muscle, the nerves, the arteries to get into a new place. So we can make that full movement. So whether I stop here or I stop here depends on how my fascia is able to actually flow dynamically in this setup. So one of the examples in one of the lectures they gave, professor gave was like 2 tissue papers. You put on top, they won't move, right? If you try to stretch them, they won't move. The only way they will move is if you add some fluid type stuff, then they will start moving. And that fluid is very rigid, then that movement will again go on. So any movement, be it yoga, be it running, swimming, cycling, whatever you want to do, any body movement, any part of your body when it's moving, it is moving, it's enabled by this movement of the fascial layers between. The muscle is giving the force, but that force won't move it. It is opposed by this friction, you can say, in some ways. And the smoother it is, the better it will move. More easily it will move. And that's where the senses will keep telling you how much it is moving also. Because those sensors that are there in this are the pressure sensors primarily. In the skin, the sensors we have are the pressure, the pain, and temperature sensors. 3 kinds of sensors are there in our nervous system, and they will tell you immediately temperature, pressure, pain. That will come to you immediately. Nociceptors, mechanoreceptors, and thermoreceptors. And they are the ones, so the ones we see here in this diagram, right? This. So sensory neuron, the nerve endings, these nerve endings are pain sensors, the open nerve endings. And this one, the sensory neurons are largely in this one, in the skin, and this layer is the pressure sensors. 4 kinds of pressure sensors that are there. Yeah. And last, before we open up for discussion, is this one. This is the point which Bhuvna was saying. This is the tissue on the right that you see is what we get from a dead in the cadaver. And this is what somebody, again a doctor, and I'll show a video. This is live tissue. This is live. So this is when he was doing a surgery, he recorded videos. Of course, with, I'm sure with the consent, this was in France of the patients. So can you see the difference between these two? Right, the point that Bhuvna was saying, the dryness that is there. So when we take out something from its environment and study, it's something else only. Yeah. Its dynamism is gone, yeah. The fluidity is gone, it's dry, it's dead, it looks practically useless. While here it has a very different, you can see the dynamism, the hydration in this tissue. Yeah, so I'll show a short video on how this works, and then we'll go. So this one has some of these videos actually from that doctor's actually recordings more. So you'll get really going inside through an endoscopy of how the fascia is. Very fascinating video. Screen sound, yes? Yeah, okay. Sound is good. Yeah.
Now, a grapefruit is a good example of fascia, because once we get in here, what is all this stuff? Now, when I did my gross anatomy lab, which involves a full dissection, I had the first lab. Oh, look at that, we've got a little bit of trouble with our grapefruit here. But if you notice, the structure of a grapefruit starting from the outer skin, is very much lined with some connective tissue. If you were to think of the grapefruit then, and every cell being contained inside the grapefruit in this way, every container represents a different stage of the fascia of the grapefruit. So these are analogous to epidermis and dermis and the underlying fascia that would be underneath there, as well as structures like muscles.
Now, these images were recorded of the living human fascia. This shape represents the kind of three-dimensional structure, as you can see deeply into the fascia. This is Strolling Under the Skin by Dr. Jean-Claude Guimbarteau. When you see the behavior of the fascia under some pressure, you start to understand how it is moving. Watch as the fascia, tendrils of the fascia, move. Imagine elasticity, surface tension, flow, and movement. The shape of these quadrahedrons are multi-layered. Look at this, amazing. The elasticity is the first component. Obviously it can move and stretch, but also notice how the fibrils can move along another fibril. Its cross-linking is partly normal and partly abnormal, but you'll see this free flow. Look at this. See the way that a tubule of myofascia moves in this rendering. Now watch as you see the tendril move along another. Now think of a membrane spreading and splitting. Observe how it separates and how it can actually rejoin later on. The splitting is what we think of as the myofascial release. This amazing lattice here in this computer depiction, how it is all enmeshed and entwined in a fractal chaos. And here, the rendering of two tubules separating, for instance. See how the fascia is in constant motion, responding to our every movement, allowing every flexibility of the tissues, movement of muscles, movement of the body, joints, everything articulating and allowing this free movement. Watch again as it separates. Now, there is this conduction, this idea of the tubule as it conducts water. See this? As the water passes through a tubule of myofascia. Amazing. This is just to give you an idea of how the body, in constant motion, is responding to the myofascial release as performed by a therapist as they help you to release this cross-linking. Look at this area of densely packed fascia. This is the structure of life. Microvacuoles, pressure changes, areas, pockets of fluid. Amazing how much we are water, how much we are space in this free movement of a human being. This is life at its very core. The spreading, releasing, rejoining. Unbelievable. But this is the core. Thank you so much.
Please.
This was super good.
Yes.
Crazy.
This Dr. John, when I'll share obviously the PPT. He's written a whole book and which comes with a DVD of these his recordings of insight. And now they have found fascial lines, etc., on how this actually operates. There is a pattern, and that's what sort of therapists who work with this really understand. And this is really so. What were the highlights again for you? Anybody? What did you see?
That separating and coming together was like, amazing. And what came to me was this, when you peel out the aloe vera leaves, inside it is jelly. And when you touch and do that, you can see how they kind of you can feel that connective tissue in your hand, kind of.
Yeah. Those are actually very good examples, biology, because he also took the example of this fruit. Leaves have a very similar structure. Another example in another lecture, one of the practitioners gave was of an orange, just like this grapefruit, right? As you keep peeling, it just layers are coming, right? Till you reach that last where that drop of juice is there. That drop is so inside all this fascia only. That's the fascial network of that fruit, right? For example. Yeah. Wonderful. Yeah, there's some comments also. Yes, Sandeep says, I heard splitting, stretching, joining. Yeah, but I did not hear breaking or did not see loose ends. Yes. Yes, it did not see that. Intelligent system completely.
So maybe Sandeep, I'll add on to that, right? So I was thinking when we get these bumps, right? I mean, like in competitive sports and all, you hit something and get like bumps on those. Is that probably the breakage in the fascia's continuity and then probably the self-healing?
So it's my understanding from what I have seen, it's less the fascia that breaks. That's when the muscle, those aspects get injured. Where the fascial component, some people recognize tendon and ligaments also as fascia because they are not muscles. They are part of this connective tissue network. They do get damaged. But this fabric, the web, that what most people talk of as fascia, there is, I think, enough redundancy. That actually supports the healing. It does what has to be done to heal. In fact, that's when all the collagen, the anti-inflammatory, all that will come. The inflammation will happen to actually arrest and start the healing process. This plays a major role in the healing. If the fascia doesn't get broken, there is too much redundancy there. But the muscles, the tendon, the ligaments, those are what really get damaged. Yes.
Can I add something?
Yes, please
to
go.
that? Because if you see, it's so fluid. Right? So it's not even energy. Right? What happens to our body? We get
Can't hear.
Our audio is coming in going.
light and everything. So the fluidity kind of what happens is the fluidity reduces.
Bhuvna?
in the fascia because fluid is not smaller. And
Probably stopping the video may help.
Yeah, I did it from my side.
I will okay.
Bhuvna, can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, can you hear me? I can hear.
Yes. Bhuvna is saying she will type it in the chat.
Yeah, so what I'm trying to say is the fluidity gets
Yes. So Bhuvna has typed out the answer. She's saying the fluidity is affected when there is injury. And we'll see that in the third part. Definitely. Yes. We'll get a chance to go deeper in that a little.
Does it also say help transfer of any nutrients because it is all water? It can all the nutrients may be soluble, right? So if there is a tendon injury or something.
Yeah. So
correct.
It all happens in that only. The injury healing happens in this network only. This base. It does. So from the blood vessels are carrying something, they will release it in this extracellular matrix, release it in the fascia for that healing to happen. So for anything to get to the skin, for example, to heal, it will go through this only. The blood vessels won't terminate directly there. It will like diffuse through the blood vessel.
One thing that was not obvious in the video or image was we couldn't see any sensory nerves in there.
Yes.
And if not sensory nerves, then how do we get that feeling of damage or something out of order is what I'm wondering.
Yeah, I think where they took this was some endoscopy or something where it wasn't there. But the English method, it's quite clear. It's there everywhere. I don't know. I'll have to look for more videos. But it's there. It's around that. At least at the skin ka to, you can. So it is here only. The fascia is here. So you know as you're touching, you know there is pressure. So that the sensory nerve is there. Okay. Sanjeev is saying, I dealt with ankle sprain and after healing, some yoga postures helped me. Yes, getting rid of scar tissues. Okay. Interesting. Scar tissues, somewhere related to fascia restriction. Possible. Scar tissue, you mean on the skin, right, Sanjeev?
Like, ankle healed, but the whole movement wasn't there. And there was as if there is a tissue, there is a bump there, which was not going away for a while. And then certain yoga postures kind of forced stretches on that, like sitting in a posture, like you sit down and put weight on the ankle.
Yeah.
And then it started releasing.
Oh yeah. Possible. If not, realigning of the fascia will definitely be important. I think I've even seen some of the traditional bone setters that in India, we have a lot of them. They do, I think, this kind of work only finally. They are very aware. So recently, I think Garima had an ankle injury as well. So the doctor didn't help. Finally, she went to a bone setter and that person was able to really sense what's happening and realign her whole ankle in a very different way. Yeah, possible what you're saying. Yes, Anjali, go ahead. You're on mute. Sorry, I muted you guys because sometimes if too many are unmute, Zoom gets confused whose audio to send. When Bhuvna was speaking, so I did. You're on mute, Anjali. You have to unmute yourself.
Okay, yeah, sorry. Okay, so I remember when I used to go to that physio who was doing my releasing of the knots. Actually, that's what someone had pointed out, that fascia thing. So after my treatment, she used to tell me to go home and she said, drink a lot of water today.
Yes.
That time, I mean, I would just say, how's the connection? Saying, no, just have a lot of water today. It'll be good for you. The toxins will come out, it'll be good. So I'm wondering that when she was doing the release, was there some toxins being spread in the body or something which had to be released through drinking of water, or was it for the benefit of the fascia itself? I don't know. The water, the extra water that I was asked to drink.
Correct. I also don't know. So you should ask her. But it could be either or both. Like you said, it could be either or both. Or something else. Both. Bhuvna says both. So good. So she knows. Yeah.
Okay. So that water that they were showing water.
Yes.
With that, so that is what they're talking about. The water that's in our body that's going through everything else. There's a lot of water in that also. Is that what this?
That's what the gel-like thing, right? So there is a gel-like thing that is watery. There is water in it, and we will see that. But there is more than water also. Water is what we are seeing, but the material has a very unique property as well. So we'll see that as well. At least some of that material. A lot of that material is still being studied. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Okay.
It's very, very new stuff that's happening. But I think still there are some things that we can learn for ourselves so we can be more watchful, kind of thing. Bhatla one day has asked the question, any connection of earthing? So it's not established. My hypothesis is yes, and I'll talk about it maybe either now or later about it.
Movement.
One more, purely postulating. I have absolutely no idea if this is true, but just recollecting from experience. So in Vipassana, right, when there is what in Vipassana is referred to as dhara prava, when you are in deep meditative states, one of the experiences there is that it can start in any one part of the body, but it quickly spreads to the entire body.
Yes.
And this I've experienced multiple times. So I'm just wondering, is there a connection of some sort there?
Fair question. I have wondered also. My hypothesis is yes, but I don't know. This is not. But yeah, you can see that connection now, right? So good.
Yeah.
Good. So that means I am able to communicate what I understood till now. So good. So because people will correlate it with your own experiences, that's very important. But getting that basic understanding of what's really happening is good. So one more thing I want to show before we move to the next part is this, another sort of where now they've started understanding the components of the fascia as well. So for example, this is the capillary, the blood vessel. You see that's a blood vessel. This is the nerve, I think, one of them. Yeah, and we're seeing mast cells, lymphocytes. These are parts that we know. There is adipose tissue. Yeah, so this yellow thing is a nerve. That's how they usually show it, yes. Now see this white thing, that is collagen. That is a central part of the fascia. One of the key components, quite extensively there, and people would have heard of the collagen protein. I think it's what's used in Botox or something, right? It's part of that layer. So that's what they are using this knowledge for, connective tissue. Now then there is this elastin. This is again a fantastic material. This is the only, and this is discovered in 2014, the only biological material which has ferroelectric property, which means that it can store information just like our nerve cells can. It responds to electric field. Till now, we thought only nerve and muscle cells respond to electric field. 2014, they found elastin also responds to electric field to the extent that it will change and it will stay that way. So if I apply a plus voltage, a battery this side, it will change its shape and it will stay unless I apply a negative and it changes, which is like it's a 0-1. You can see it like a memory, right? Saying if it stays, it stays. In nerves, everything keeps moving. Muscles, they keep moving. But this is again, my hypothesis conjecture, can be a source of memory at a very, very like we saw ubiquitous across the body level. Memory we are used to thinking of only here, but this is where there is memory that won't change unless there is a certain electric field applied. And this is what Bhuvna I was saying. If you see in what we say in SE and other techniques, that there is memory across the body. That memory is not just in our nervous system. In fact, there is in spines, there are interneurons, there is brain. But beyond that, there is this possibility that there might be memory. This is the first material discovered only in 2014, that its ferroelectric property.
You
So
mean
that's
elastin, right?
Elastin, yes, elastin. This
And
one.
it's exactly what is said in Buddhist system of meditation or in Vipassana, right? Like the whole vikar, the concept of vikar is exactly this.
Yes, it's across the body. It's not in just in the mind, in this brain. Brain is an organ. The mind is across the body, right? So brain is only here, mind is everywhere. So this is where there is some different kind of intelligence that's there. So the thing I just wanted to say, there are different components. So collagen is one, elastin is one. Again, you see a lot of white in this, right? Still, even in this, there is white, right? So what is the name they have given to it? They call it the ground substance. So there is another material called the ground substance in which this fabric also stays, the collagen and the elastin and that material. So all this is fascia right now. They come from the same source in embryology is what they are beginning to understand also. So these are again very new. I'm sharing very raw information. My information is not full. I hope some of you also get interested and start looking at it more deeply and sharing with others as well. But this is, another thing that I wanted to share. There are different components in the fascia which have different roles. The collagen has a role to play, the elastin has a role to play, the ground substance, and still getting discovered. 2014 is very recent in this. So what are some of the implications of this, right? So to me, this is one very important implication, that this is not how we are. This was the earlier version. So this is a picture from a lecture by a doctor. He said this was the first Terminator. This is the best we could do. Now we have become this, right? So we are not this. We are more like this, very fluid, right? Mobility in the layers is important for this fluidity to happen, for this free movement to happen. This now there is research which has established that all stretches that we do in yoga or anything, it increases more the mobility of the layers, not the length of muscles. It doesn't affect the length of muscles. It's actually like if I am able to touch my foot, like in just a simple that posture, right? My toes, sorry, as I bend down, it has a lot to do with the mobility in the layers in right from my heel to my back and everything, more than the actual muscles. They don't lengthen, they don't change the length. And vice versa. They are learning that movement is important to keep the layers mobile. So if we don't move, if we walk every day, at least, right? That's the theory around 10,000 steps. We think it's about cardio. It's a lot more than cardio. It's just about us moving to make sure this is fluid. And that's why in the wild, we see animals are constantly moving, right? Their default is they're constantly moving. They're very rarely sitting, resting. They'll do gentle walk, but they're moving because that keeps this fluidity going. In fact, gentle is better. We'll see that after this. Okay. So this is to me about what this interdependent layers comes around. It's that mobility, the fluidity that is essential for our movement, for our flexibility, and movement is essential to ensure this flexibility and movement as well. It's a very virtuous cycle, in fact. Does that make sense? Yes, a lot of videos off, so I don't know how people are
May I
seeing it.
ask a
Yes,
question?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes,
This
Deepika.
is Deepika.
Yes.
Yes. You said that it is not the length of the muscle which is increasing when we are performing asana or whatever. So why is it that when a person starts out in yoga, when he's trying to touch his feet, it does not happen, but with repetitive, practices,
Yes.
Finally, he does reach there. Why?
Yes.
If the muscle is not lengthening, then what is happening?
That's what, that the mobility, what is happening is that between the fascia that's there, between the muscle, everything, that is rigid. As you keep doing more, and we will see now how to do that to make it the fastest. That also there is research happened to increase range of motion, but that fascia starts sliding. And that actually what allows you to go more down, bend more, increase the flexibility, increase the range of motion.
Okay. So was it that earlier it was understood as lengthening of
Yes.
muscle, which is now being actually corrected?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. And they said to lengthen muscle, it takes way more time than what typically happens. Like that's very advanced level of, if at all, yoga practitioner. So even contortionists that you see, right? People who can completely twist their body, can do the most flexible, difficult postures. For example, we see now one on the dance shows, for example, right? So they also, it's due to their inter movement. It's not the muscle.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So these two things clear. We'll move to the third one, which I think is one of the most fascinating, and that's how actually this session started. We'll come to that. 3D mechano-metabolic structure. So what does this mean? So mechano affects movements. This is mechanical side, right? And what metabolic, and we look at the mechanical side, we have talked about a little how it affects, but it affects our metabolism also. It affects physiological processes and emotional states. The fascia does that. So they are beginning to, this is a lot more early stage, but you can see, right? If your fascia is constrained, your breathing will be constrained. For example, very simply. And that's one example she was giving, that if the cervix is fused, her breathing had become very shallow. So if there is a constraint here, your breathing will get affected, for example, right? So it will affect your metabolism in different ways. So all physiological process will start getting affected. And emotional state, one of the videos that gives an example. You will hardly find a person who is sad like this, right? So as soon as you're sad, your body will start. There is a certain motion that happens where the body starts losing. And this is what actors do a lot better. They understand the emotion in the body of it, of experiencing that emotion in the body. So the emotional state and the state of the fascia, the position of the fascia also gets affected. There is one paper on this, which I'll share the link. So again, it's on that page, which I said, the NIH page, which I would recommend all to go through, where they talk about this, how emotional states are also affected by the fascial state and vice versa. So if you're happy, you automatically, your body changes, right? That's what we call as body language. It's actually the fascia which is changing. It's changing that structure there. And there is that, again, neural link, which is making these two, connecting these two systems. But it's, again, not very well understood. There's more still hypothesis around it, but I think that's one of the key things, at least how it affects us. Yeah. So this is about the mechano-metabolic. We'll go a little deeper in the mechanical side to understand one of the key properties of this, right? Whether it's liquid or solid. So we have been saying fluid. Bhuvna also said fluidity gets changed. What does that really mean from a physics standpoint? And it is like this material, which I will show. This is something we did. So thanks to Madhuri and her son also, Tanush. One Sunday, the three of us decided to spend time doing this. You can do it at home. Take cornstarch or arahar. I think it's most homes in kitchen, it's there. Make a 2:1 mixture, meaning 2 cups or 2 times cornstarch, 1 time water. So water is less, more cornstarch. This won't happen with maida. It will happen with cornstarch only. Corns maida. That's what I understand from, like we make makki ka atta, what remains like maida is cornstarch. Now, this is what happens. I'll show you. This is my hand. So what is happening here? Just see this. This is the mixture. I'm hitting it hard. Very hard with my fingers. Nothing is happening. Now just see. I just let it. When I pick it up with a jerk, it again comes. It's very rigid, like something rigid. And as I let it be, then it starts sliding down. And see, if I take it out slowly, gently, it comes out with ease. If I go in it simply, slowly, gently, it goes in with ease. But if I'm hitting it hard, it becomes rigid. It happens with one finger also. It's the same process. So I'll move to the next one. So one would wonder this was fingered. So let's see what happens with a knife. Same process, right? You see how hard it's becoming as I'm hitting it with a pointed knife. And just see if I let it be, it just slides down into the water. This is Madhuri doing it. So just let it be and it slides down. And if you take it out again with a jerk, it will come out. If you take it out lightly, it comes out very easy. Otherwise, it stays stuck. See, this is, of course, repeated with a spoon with the same. Okay. Yeah. And this is another example. If you take it, it looks very fluid, right? Like it will flow. It's flowing. As soon as you let it be, it's flowing out.
हाँ बना आटा गोला बना इसका
फास्ट बनाना फास्ट फास्ट करना होगा तो रखेगा तो
हाँ और अब रख ले बस
Yeah, you're seeing it. I would encourage everyone to make it. There's nothing like feel and touch. I saw so many videos on YouTube on this. Apparently, it's taught now in 7th standard school only. So they do this experiment with cornstarch at school. I learned it only recently. See, it's like proper atta, and you just let it be, and it'll.
राइट हैंड में ले
So this is what was happening to what Sandeep Bhatlavande was asking, right? Ki when there is an impact, it becomes rigid. It becomes completely hard. You saw even with a knife, as pointed a thing, it could just withhold that pressure. So the fascia has that ability. It will withhold that pressure when it's hit very hard. The more force you apply, in fact, it becomes very hard, which is what Bhuvna was saying. The fluidity gets affected. It's no longer a fluid. It behaves like a rock solid diamond. And if you just let it be, it will flow. It will flow like water. It will flow with ease. And this is what in yoga also it said actually, that our body has the ability to become hard like a diamond and soft like a flower. It's one of the verses, in fact, in yoga.
Does the concept of prayatna shaitilyam work here?
Yes, that's what this is. Prayatna shaitilya. You do the shaitilya prayatna. Na? So with the knife, you're putting it easily with shaitilya, with ease. When your prayatna, your effort is shaitilya, then it will flow. If your prayatna is hard, then it will actually become rigid. Your body will also become rigid. It won't change. So to make change happen in your body, to shift anything in your body, you need that ease. And that ease has to come not just in the body, also in your mind. Like we saw, the link is there, right? The emotional ease also has to come. And that's what we know as compassion, love, satkar. That's why satkar is said, right? In the sutras also. Abhyas has to be satkare with satkar. Yes, Deepika, you're saying something?
Yeah, then it becomes Drid Bhumi, I was saying.
Then it becomes, it will get to a place where it needs to. Yes. Otherwise, it becomes rigid. So this, for me, fascia is like this. It flows like a liquid and rebounds like a solid. Like to me, this sort of symbolizes it. It is a solid when pressure force is applied, sudden, high fast, very fast. And in physics terms, in mathematical terms, they have modeled this kind of material, including fascia. It's called high frequency. So when your input is high frequency, when your pressure is high frequency, then it becomes rigid, it becomes solid. What does that mean? It does not flow, it does not move, it becomes elastic. In technical language, elastic means something that comes back to its original shape. That's the property of a solid. We have this Young's constant, right? Elastic coefficient we used to have in physics. Basically, the solid, like steel, you will pull like this, it will come back, right? It becomes rigid. It wants to come back to its old place. You may stretch it, but it will come back. So if you do that with great force, it will come back. And that's what rigidity essentially is, coming back to its original place. But it is liquid when pressure or force is applied gently with low frequency. It's gentle. And then what happens? It begins to flow. It moves like a viscous liquid. It is more malleable. It is less rigid. So liquid, viscous liquid means there is some resistance to the flow, but it will flow. Its viscosity will vary, but it will flow. And that less frequency is also coming from not just the physical impact, physical force that we apply, but also the mental force that we apply. How rigidly, how strongly we work with it, as opposed to just, it's okay, it is what it is. If you work with that mindset, the body will respond very differently. If you work with a mindset where it's more stressful, it will respond very differently. That's what this is saying. Because our brain waves operate at different frequencies. Now, EEG signal, again, medically has measured that. High frequency means we are operating in the solid-like mode. Low frequency, we are operating in the fluid, liquid-like mode. I don't know if there is an equivalent, Bhuvna, of something like this in BCST also, around the brain and the brain waves, how if that frequency mindset helps with the healing of the body as well.
You just see like
Yeah. Bhuvna, we can't hear you. Yes. Patla one day says quantity and composition of fascia may be changing with age. Yes, it does. Okay. So I'll take a pause here again and see. I know we are out of time also. We are done with most of the content. Now it's about saying, what does it mean a little bit more finally. But yeah, if there are, what does this, how is this third part sitting? This viscoelasticity, this solid liquid dual behavior of this. How are people, how are you receiving that fact? Yeah, Sanjeev. Sanjeev, then Deepika. You're on mute, Sanjeev.
Yeah, sorry about that. So I was saying in real life also, like when we try to put pressure on something or somebody, you see the rigidity. But when you are, gentle, then, the chances are better.
Yes. Yeah, that macro pattern comes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Varsha says makes sense in the spiritual and emotional sense. Yes. Yeah, Deepika, you were saying something good.
Yeah, about this fascia thing, that about the fluidity part. How come we don't feel it?
We don't feel it?
Yeah.
We do? Can you say what does that mean? We don't feel it?
We feel the rigidity only when there is very extreme pressure, right?
No, not necessarily. So the fact that different people have different range of motions itself means their level of rigidity is different.
Okay.
So again, linking that, right? So as you, so will come, so basically now what this means, for example, right? If somebody has to increase their range of motion, they have to start touching their toes. right? For example, what should you do? So what is that now science telling us? That you actually don't take it till the edge today, till the pain point. You do till where you like stop. In fact, the best suggestion is stop 30 to 40% before the pain starts. Only go till that point and hold and stay there. Give space and time for that to flow. And then you will see that over time that range of motion improves.
Yeah.
So the rigidity starts going down in the fascia.
Yeah, we do see that in yoga because we always say that it's better to do 5% lesser than your capacity rather than doing 1% more, which is exactly the opposite of, gymming and CrossFit and kickboxing. They will always tell you do a little more than you can actually do.
Yes. So in
our
fact, now,
sages already knew all these things, that means.
yes, of course, they knew. They understood this. And that's why actually now the research is saying they did this trial where they had people, they asked some people to go till 30, 40%, not 95 or
90.
19, 30, 40. And they did, some said go till 90 and some they said push. And they found the people who went to 30, 40, their range of motion improvement was the best, not even the 90.
Right.
Because the body was more at ease, right? Your mind was less in stress. Everything, it was allowing that flow to happen, that you are setting the intention and letting that flow happen. Create
So it's
that
like
space.
creating an environment, actually.
Yes, perfect, very well said. Creating an environment.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the context, right? Like in yoga, a lot of time it's about flexibility. So you are going towards the liquid, form of this one. But on the other, like maybe you take martial arts, for example, and your objective is to break the board, right? So they're trying to transform it into the as hard, rock solid, impact as possible. So I think it's those are basically the sports aspect of it. It's I call it, the fluidity between different states is what each sport is or exercise is teaching you to do. In some cases, you may basically go slow. In some cases, you may have to go fast.
Yeah, and both yoga and martial arts actually say the same thing. They are saying when you need it to be hard, it should be able to become hard, which it will automatically. But when you need it to be flexible, it should be flexible. That was the difference even in martial art versus the Western form of fighting, right? Between Bruce Lee and whatever the others are, for example.
Absolutely. I actually take my son right to some classes, and there I think I just sit and listen. The big difference they were teaching students was a lot of time when you have to hit something, you start like clenching your fist, make it very tight, and then deliver the impact. And they were saying that's wrong. It should be as easy as possible, and the closest to the impact you basically bring it all together, the hardest it hits.
Yes.
Which was very telling.
Yeah. And what this is saying, the tissue will become hard on impact automatically. That's its nature. You don't have to do. It will become hard. What you're training it is allowing it to express itself the way it should. You're removing the blocks to its expression, right? Because if you're trying to hit, the reason it can't be as hard as it can be in its full potential, because there is some block there. It's not getting its full support. If you unblock it, which is both what yoga and martial arts do, they unblock it, then it can be as hard when it needs to be hard. It can be as flexible when it needs to be flexible.
Yeah, and it has to be hard only at the point of impact.
Only at the point. Otherwise, you don't need it. Exactly. And it will be, because that's what its nature is. That's what its physics is. It will be. We don't have to do. We don't have to think. We have to just let it be, and it will be. You train them for that. And that's what massage therapists, I think, to Andy's initial point, when, again, they are doing these blocks that they are trying to remove, knots, they detect this when there is enough fascia, dense fascia, for example, in one of that live fascia we saw. Again, they can soften it with their techniques, for example. So that's what you are trying to release in that. One of the other things on, I think, just on that bending and in yoga posture, I have found useful, I think it's linked with this to some extent, is when you are, say, in a place right? You have twisted and you want to increase range of motion. Where you stop, take some few normal breaths. Don't hold your breath ever. Take few normal breaths, because breath is again another regulator of this whole system. It will enable that flow again there in that position. So when you're holding a position, take normal breaths. Never like too deep, too short, whatever is coming, take normal breaths, whatever is happening, but focus on your breath. Allow that breath to happen. Sometimes we hold the breath also. We never hold the breath and we are not aware that it gets held by automatic only. So just take a few breaths. Yes.
Yeah, maybe like some for future sessions, right? I mean, I was curious now, with this, the whole fascia concept, the relationship with different types of pranas that we have, because like you said, it's a regulator, right? I think maybe it could be a good discussion topic down the line.
Interesting. Yeah. Good, worth exploring. Yes. Yeah, Deepika?
Yeah, so this is called pran dharana.
Okay.
Concentration on breath. So when you hold a posture, that is prayatna, then you slacken the effort. The skeleton is holding itself, but the muscles supporting the skeleton are relaxed. So all the effort is in going into the asana and coming out of it. But in the final posture, we relax and focus on the breath as it is, as a sakshi, as a witness. And that is
as
called
a witness.
pran dharana.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
So our sages knew so much.
Yes.
So fascinating.
This is by looking inside they knew. Now we are getting that evidence from outside also.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it good builds conviction, hopefully. Okay. So to summarize, these were the three things we are looking at. This is what structural continuity is telling us to me, that it is one body. It is more than just sum of parts. So I think that's, if you just take home that, to me, that's more than enough, that it is one body. The fact that where you see the pain is not where the problem might. There is constant communication. It's one body. We have gotten so used to heart, different systems, different things, but it is finally one body which stays together. And it's constantly communicating, constantly interacting with one part with the other. Right? So to me, that's the message of the structural continuity of the fascia. That's what it's enabling essentially. There is a very now physical basis for this one body. It's not spiritual. It's not about some theory, some belief we have one body or not. It is a fact. It is now mechanically, physically connected. Everything is connected, right from our deepest nucleus of the cell, of every cell, to another cell. Unity in diversity. Yes, thank you. One good way of saying it, Deepika. Second, this interdependent layers is telling us that we are fluid. We are fluid movement. Our movement will be fluid. When we move, will enable fluidity of our interlayers. That's how we move. Muscles are enabling it, but our real movement is moving through these layers. Then we move aram se, if our layers can move very smoothly, right? So, and what enables that smooth movement is movement. So the more we move, and what the next thing tells us, move gently, move with compassion for yourself, move with satkar, don't be rigid about it, move with ease. The more you do that, more ease will come in your body, in the movement of your body. Your body will become more at ease, more at flexible. The knots will go. And when you need to be hard and rigid, you will still be able to. It's not at the cost. So never think this, it's at the cost of strength. This flexibility, this movement, this fluidity, remember that property which we saw in the third thing that we just saw, that it can be hard when it needs to be. As hard that it's not even letting a knife penetrate. Yes, butterfly effect is another way of seeing it. It is like Isha, yeah, good comment. So many connections. But remember this, that this flexibility, this fluidity doesn't mean this. Like what Bhuvna was sharing and Sandeep also, in an accident, in an injury, the fascia is what actually really protects. It becomes hard. Otherwise, it will go. So it actually allows that rigidity in our body as well to keep it, to protect it at the same time in that place. So the term that is used is viscoelastic. Again, people who are more interested can explore it from that lens also, viscoelasticity. I haven't talked of tensegrity, which I won't. So some things I thought which from our well-being standpoint, before I close, and I'll stay there if there are more questions, to say we are one body, more than sum of parts. Movement is necessary to ensure flexibility and mobility, right? So for movement, we need movement. That's how we are designed. Movement is necessary to ensure proper functioning of all our organs, physiological processes, and emotional states. Because movement ensures the fascia works well, and this will. So whatever form of movement, please do movement, right? That's the whole thesis. To heal ourselves, to bring change in emotional or physical structure, gentle movements are more conducive. When we want to bring a change, we want to reorganize, gentle movements with compassion, with satkar is important. Don't be harsh on yourself, on your body, which is part of you, your mind, all that. As compassionate, as loving, as gentle it is, more easy it will be. And lastly, we don't need to do full stretch till point of pain to improve flexibility. This applies both to the body and the mind because they are the same. They are not different. I think if you take that away, that our mind is across all our body, it's not just in the brain, right? So to improve, we don't have to go till the point of pain. We need to do it gently and hold and hold. Give space and time. The fascia is physical, like you saw, that movement takes finite time. It will take time to reorganize, but it will happen. It will happen. Just give it space and time for it to move. So you set your intention. If it's mental, you set your body in a certain way, if that's what you want, and hold with gentleness, with compassion. And that reorganization will happen as your body changes, your emotional state changes, your mental state changes, and vice versa. It's when we bring these two together, we create a very good virtuous cycle in everything. That's what this fascia is telling us, at least to me. Take a pause here, then if there's any last comments, and we'll close. Thank you everyone for staying, but we'll close with our prayer. Yeah, content-wise, I'm done. If anybody wants to share anything, say anything, any comments, questions, you're welcome. Please.
Just on the fun side, there was a movie in which Amitabh Bachchan says motion uplifts emotion. So
which one was this?
It was Amitabh, Deepika.
Yeah.
He's an old father. Yeah.
Hindi mein bata na. What does he say?
I don't know. He says this only in English. Oh, Bengali.
English only says motion uplifts
Oh,
emotion.
Yeah, he was suffering from constipation.
Yeah.
In that movie, that whole movie. It's a recent one. Yes.
Yeah.
Called Piku, the movie. Piku.
Pico. Yes.
Thank you.
Movie.
Good. So we'll close with the prayer, and then if there are more questions, comments, I'm around. So people who want to go can go. Thank you. Just sit comfortably. Close with a prayer. Let your feet be comfortably on the ground. Your back supported. Bringing your attention to your breath. Repeat after me. May all be sukhi, khush, joyful.
All be sukhi, khush, joyful.
May all be swasth, sehatmand, healthy.
May all be swasth, sehatmand, healthy.
May all be in shanti, sukoon, peace.
May all be in shanti, sukoon, peace.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for staying.
Thank
for
you.
sharing your thoughts. I am around if there are more questions, comments. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hello, I wanted to know, like this fascia concept, is it like this gentle movement will help a patient whose knee is totally dried and needs a knee replacement surgery? So with this fascia, whatever concept, and this can that operation be avoided?
So there are now, so it will obviously vary case to case, but there are many cases, including my own mother's, where doctors have suggested total knee replacement. My mother was suggested this now 15, 17 years ago. With some yogic work practices, she's now climbing 6 stairs, 6 stories, crossing her legs, sitting very comfortably. No surgery needed. But that it requires effort. That's the first video also that I shared. I don't know you had joined by then or not, but yeah, it can. It requires that will, the determination to do it gently, or with the patient also. They have to be able to do it. It requires continuous effort though. Regularity, doing it, it can be reorganized. But that's what I have seen. Obviously, it will vary case to case, but it's worth giving a shot. Where are you based, Madhulika? Bombay.
I'm in Navi Mumbai.
Navi Mumbai. Yeah, in Bombay, there is you can obviously set up a consult for that person with our coaches. They can train. If they want to do it in person, the Santa Cruz Yoga Institute is here in Santa Cruz. They did it. My mother started there. In fact, 17 years ago, we weren't there. There is Kevalya Dham in Lonavala. There again, they can go for a week, stay, learn it very well, continue their practice there. These two I know of. I know in Navi Mumbai there is another institute. I am not familiar with them though.
No, actually, we were going on that path, but after meeting doctors, the orthopedic surgeons and all, they said like this cartilage, they don't regrow, regenerate. And when cartilage is just like pura ghis gaya hai, so you need a knee replacement surgery. No, none of the yoga or any practice will help it.
Right. So give it 1 year if you can. Whoever the person is, 1 year आराम से देखो, शांति से, फिर decide करो, करके देखो, but with the full enthu, full faith. That would be my suggestion if they can. I don't know how unbearable is the pain, how uncomfortable is the life. For my mother, in 3 months, it started making a huge difference. That much.
Okay, because I'm asking for my mother. She has already gone for one knee replacement in one leg.
Oh.
And she will be going for the second. So I just wanted to know, like, because that is also a very painful path.
Yes, yeah, the surgeries are not easy.
Knee
Rehabilitation is very low.
For 6 months, the pain she has to bear.
Correct.
So I just wanted to know, like, according to doctor's concept, surgery के अलावा, or there is no other way.
Yes. आपने वो शुरू वाला देखा था वीडियो? You were there. You had logged in by then. The first one.
Yeah.
तो वो बोल रही है ना कि डॉक्टर्स किस पे बेसिस पे डिसाइड कर रहे हैं? एक्सरे पर, एमआरआई पे.
Yes.
उस पे ये सब आता ही नहीं है, सॉफ्ट टिश्यू ना, उनको दिखता ही नहीं है, तो उनका डायग्नोसिस और उनको वही सिखाया है. सो यू कांट ब्लेम देम. दिस इज व्हाट देयर ट्रेनिंग इज. They are trying to suggest. The rest is, yeah, but this requires time. Given that she has done surgery in one, उसका rehab भी बहुत important है, क्योंकि जब तक वो बैलेंस भी नहीं होगा ना, तो एक पर अभी प्रेशर अलग पड़ रहा होगा, तो दूसरे पे और ज्यादा पड़ रहा होगा, जो सर्जरी जिस पर नहीं हुई है.
वो भी है, लेग थोड़ा बेंड हो जाते हैं ना, जिस बॉडी भी है वो थोड़ा स्ट्रेट है.
करेक्ट. और उसके लिए इधर स्ट्रेंथ चाहिए होगा, हिप्स में, बैक में, यही पूरा कनेक्टेड है. सिर्फ नी पर आप फोकस मत करो.
ओके.
यू विल हैव टू वर्क ऑन द होल थिंग, तो वो हो जाएगा. इसीलिए किसके साथ कर रहे हो, बट गेट वर्क विद अ प्रॉपर योगा थेरेपिस्ट फॉर दिस if you do, or a physio who does this kind of work, fascia and this kind of internal work, not just regular physiotherapy.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Welcome. Thank you. Next. Hi, Varsha.
Hi, Anjali, where are you based?
I'm based in Mumbai.